entering the top three. And no prizes for guessing the top three. But at the third spot, we have Robert James Fischer, born in 1943 in Chicago. Obviously, the world champion in 1972, which by our standards only quote-unquote one world championship. Peter, why do we still have him in the top three?
Yeah, that's the funny thing. You have basically mentioned it all already, and it wasn't that much. But his world championship record is, as you say, one win. And, we have this classical lineage in chess. So normally, only the reigning world champion doesn't have a loss. But Fischer is sort of the exception to that rule, that he actually withdrew, which of course have made him somewhat mythical. The other parameter we have is his world rank. For 9 years and 1 month, he was number one in the world. But like we also debated with Lasker, there was definitely a certain amount of inactivity in that time. So I guess the real question is, how can we defend having Fischer as number three so high on our list? And it's just his amount of dominance when he was the best. He was really, really the best, right? I mean,
well, he did from 1970 till 1972 against very, very strong opposition at that time. There are a lot of good chess players.
Yeah, there is both people from the past and people from the next generation where he just completely obliterates, right? I mean, he plays previous interzonal and such and withdraws, but then he finally qualifies, and then he has this incredible run. He beats Taimanov 6-0. He beat Larsen 6-0, and then he beats Petrosian 6.5, 2.5. It's, 18.5 to 2.5 on his three candidate matches. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and those aren't putzes, right? In 1970, there's this debate, is Larsen the strongest player in the world, or should he be board one in that match, and so on. Petrosian, famously hard to beat world champion, and he just completely destroys him.
You can argue both Larsen and Petrosian is slightly above their peak, but it's very much Fischer who makes them look like that to that extent. I mean, they both had heavy ambitions of getting the title at that point, right? And it's sort of big blows to that career, and that to that extent, it's just on a shocking scale, and I think unprecedented. Should you mention something? We're talking about Morphy, maybe, but
different times, different level of competition, and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's hard to judge, but it just stands out so much historically, and probably always will be, that Fischer does belong in the top three, even if we take all the myths, the lone American against the Soviet stars and everything else out of it. It's hard to argue his unparalleled dominance.
Yeah, and also now we mentioned how he qualified for the title. He also wins it very convincingly. Of course, there is a lot of politics, a lot of debate. He loses the game by forfeit, etc. But when it comes to pure chess context, he's just a much better player. And it's not like Spassky is playing a bad match. He's actually playing pretty well. Fischer is just a considerably better player at the time, right?
Yeah.
So the world gets robbed from Karpov against Fischer. Maybe they would have played more than one match and such. But he's an outstanding talent who peaks at the right time in that sense. Larsen told me an interesting thing about Fischer, that he thought that, he actually was somewhat nervous, and he only wanted to play for the world title when he felt absolutely sure he could win. And, you can argue, he was right. When he decided to play, he was very sure he could win, because he was just in a completely different league of the others.
Yeah, I don't know. There's all this speculation on his motives. Obviously, he quits a lot of tournaments. He sort of retires twice from chess in the 1960s. I am not enough of a scholar there to be sure about what drove him or what made him do certain things. But the chess, not just the result, but also the chess, the accuracy and the level he plays at, it's very hard to argue with.
Yeah, you are touching the same thing as with Capablanca, that the level of accuracy is on a different level, right? That's more or less, it's sort of, if we speak of Fischer stylistically, I don't know where to put him. I mean, of course, we will show his flashy combinational games, But he was not a tactician in that sense, right? He was more...
mainly he's a super clean technician. No, I'm not sure what company you put him in. If it's Carlsen, Capablanca, it's more that school than the Yefins Kasparov.
Maybe even some Lasker as well, if you want them somehow, this fighting abilities and stuff. Just incredibly strong. It sounds too simplistic, but I guess that's what we think, right?
Yeah. I believe that's the bottom line once again. For these rankings, you could make a case saying he only won one world championship, that he shouldn't be that high, but the manner in which he did it and the results he had in 1970 till 1972 are so freaky.
It's just absurd. Yeah. So let's jump to Reykjavík, perhaps, 1972, and have a bit of a look at some chess.
Let's have a look at a game. This is game 3 after he forfeits game 2. Which one is
He
it?
starts by losing this drawn ending where he takes an h2, just sort of reasonably unmotivated. Then he gets upset about a dispute with cameras and is about to leave, and there is things like that. And then, he doesn't show up for game 2. And, lots of debate. He shows up. He even argues that because he lost game 2 but didn't show up, it shouldn't count for color, so he wanted to be white in game 3, but that was of course refused. And then he shows up behind 2-0, must be destabilized in many ways, and just plays the Benoni and completely crushes the world champion.
What was his repertoire at the time? He's mainly known as a King's Indian player, I would guess, but he could also play his Queen's Gambits and stuff like that.
The first game he actually played the Ragosin, which at that time I guess was seen as kind of controversial. Also he had this huge winning score, so he would play a lot of King's Indians and such, but I think with white he was more limited to e4, while in this match he wasn't. But against d4 he would play various things, maybe also depending on the opponents. But Benoni is somewhat rarer, I would say.
Yeah, this knight h5 is the first.
Yeah.
I don't know. Big idea, at least I associate this theme with this game, allowing his pawn structure to be broken up for activity.
Not that good as far as I remember, but that's a difference.
It's innovative. I'm not sure if it stood the test of time. 93, queen h4, but now he's sort of stabilized. He doesn't allow it.
Yeah, very quickly it went from, I think the right maneuver was to try and keep a knight around the c4 square. I forgot if you should do knight e3 or knight, maybe you can take and reroute the other knight, probably not here, but history turned out that white was actually better here, but Fischer was trying to win that day and also to get back in the match. And I think Spassky said that he was basically psychologically broken at this point. That this is pretty weird, for sure, leading a world championship match 2-0, but there seemed to be too much pressure also, and
also kind of been so easy to deal with Fischer's behind the scenes.
Also, I think, we all know the psychological factor also. If someone doesn't show up for a game of chess for the first 20 minutes, you start thinking that maybe I'm going to win without playing. This match must be such a big burden for Spassky, and suddenly you can feel that maybe it's actually all over. I have won it, I've done it, right? And then he shows up and starts playing. It must have been tremendously difficult. I think Spassky even suggested later in life that the right recipe would have been to resign game 3. But that sounds a bit too much hindsight.
Yeah, hard to say. Anyway, he does get outplayed.
Yeah, that's just...
And I'm not sure if one can say this game decides the match, but it certainly turns the dynamics big time. Because even going into the match, even with the run in the candidates, Spassky had a plus score against Fischer and all that stuff. It wasn't clear who the favorite was, right?
No, it starts becoming unclear in that sense. So I agree. It's easy to say with hindsight, but let's
Yeah, as for the game, it's just a clean technical kill after he gets this pleasant position of the opening. He gives up his 2 bishops to take an extra pawn and checkmate Spassky on these light squares. Not the flashiest of Fischer games, but that's the one that...
No, but as you say, a crucial one, and also he takes risks. And should he lose this game, he's down 3-0 and he plays the Benoni. I mean, it's quite a gamble. And if the gamble goes wrong, I mean, chess history will be completely different. I mean, well, imagine Fischer not winning this match. I have no idea where he would be on our list. But, he's out of top 10 for sure, right? Or,
no.
I don't know. Create your own myths, of course. Yeah.
Most people were playing for high spots on this list, so that would have been devastating.
No.
But yeah, of course, there is so much controversy surrounding Fischer and where you rank him and so on and so forth. We thought he belongs in the top 3 just on pure dominance. And then, yeah, you can throw in the legacy, the 60 memorable games, his games in the 60s and so on and so forth. But in a way, he's in line with many of the other Americans we covered who don't have the longevity all the time or focus not to keep playing chess, but just have this incredible dominance. No, if we think of Murphy, like to lesser extent, maybe Pillsbury and so on and so forth, fine. These Americans are very much...
They don't stay around, yeah?
No, but they're dominating a lot when they show up. And
very much so. No, I mean, it's more that they come and they conquer and then they sort of burn out or leave in a way, right? And sort of, and then stay.
Yeah, obviously. Every case is different. And yeah, Fischer, as you all know, refused to play the match against Karpov in 1975 and then doesn't really show up until 1992, I think, in chess, which, yeah.
That's true.
We don't really count for.
No, we have decided
the legacy. This is, yeah.
Cover that one.
Anyway, that's Robert James Fischer on the 3rd spot, I'm pretty sure. There is more to read on him if you would like to educate yourself even further. Thanks for watching. See you at number 2. Who could it be?